This is Hashtag Finance, presented to you by the Canadian Securities Exchange, the exchange for entrepreneurs. With your host, Barrington Miller.
Hi, welcome to Hashtag Finance. I'm your host, Barrington Miller, with the Canadian Securities Exchange, and today I'm here with Michael Frank from Revive Therapeutics, proudly listed on the CSE. How are you doing today, Michael?
Great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure coming on the show.
Now, before I jump into anything, I want to make sure that you're okay, your family's okay, all of those healthy and safe things during this pandemic.
That's I have to admit, that's a great question. First time a host asked me that, so I appreciate it. All is fine, and hopefully, we all get through this trying time. But thank you for asking.
No problem. Which is a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about, or at least begin to explore. Let's talk about Revive Therapeutics and where Revive was, where you are, and where you're going. Can you walk us through this?
Sure. Basically, I've done a few other shows in the past, but I guess there's a lot of things that have gone on with the company over the last couple of months. So obviously, it's good to sort of do the evolution of how we started and basically where we are today. Revive basically was an IP pharma company, started back in really about 2012, 2013, looking at different diseases, depression, but it evolved into more of a platform to repurpose drugs back in 2015 timeframe. It repurposed a drug called Bucillamine, which came out of Japan and South Korea. Bucillamine was used for rheumatoid arthritis, was a antioxidant, anti-rheumatic drug, and it has been used since then. It's quite successful there to treat rheumatoid arthritis, and never came to North America, but used extensively there. But back in 2015, Revive basically repurposed it for acute gout flares, for gout, and basically ran an FDA phase 2 clinical study, got approved. It also ran got approved actually to do a phase 2 study for cystinuria, which was for kidney stones, but it actually didn't do the study. But it got a phase 2 approval, ran the study for gout, and the company basically had a strong framework in understanding of Bucillamine and its capabilities, and sort of moved it into the war chest. And then it sort of did a little bit of a pivot. It developed some strong IP around cannabis with CBD, working with the University of South Carolina. It basically procured assets out of there where CBD could work on treating autoimmune hepatitis. And we basically looked at that whole sector. And then cannabis sort of had a bit of obviously a meltdown in some respects, but we created a lot of the IP and pharma for cannabis. And we believe in that sector still. It's just that it's not right now, and sort of seems to be in the forefront. But the key was to basically take the IP we had with cannabis, and we looked at areas like psilocybin and where it could show some advantages. So we basically we're fortunate we have a deal we did with the University of Wisconsin where we have a license exclusively to use their delivery platform, which is shrimp and plant-based derivatives. When it was mixed with CBD, it gave you unique wound dressing properties. And what we did is we looked at that in terms of seeing how that could fit with psilocybin, and we signed a deal with the University of Wisconsin. We have an exclusive license for the technology to work with psilocybin to create some unique formulations, which we developed as we acquired a company called Psilocin Pharma. And Psilocin has some unique formulations around psilocybin. So we basically evolved into the psychedelic sector using our platform from cannabis. And, we're doing some very strong stuff with the University of Wisconsin in the lab there. We announced today that we're working basically on, creating some products which will go down the clinical path, which are basically thin film-based oral dosages, things like breast strips and lozenges and things like that. So we're very encouraged to move that down the clinical path, because that's where we think the validation comes, is working with things clinically. So back in about February, March, March timeframe, to complement this, we looked at Bucillamine as a drug and its anti-inflammatory capabilities and its capability to sort of help, fight off some of the remnants of a reactive oxygen cytokine storm, which is what happens when you have, let's say, a chronic flu strain or H1N1 or some of these strains which invade the body. This type of a reaction happens where there's basically all the pathways of your nervous system get sort of out of whack, and there's a massive influx of inflammation around a lot of the organs. So we had all the data because we did a lot of work with gout, and we decided that we'd go to the FDA just to look at doing a phase 2 study with our product, Bucillamine, and we followed some IP around infectious diseases, which addressed COVID. And when we did basically an IND, you have to be very specific on the disease. So we made an application, and they came back and said, well, because you have so much data, the drug's been around 30 years, it addresses a lot of the safety efficacy, you just give us a submission for a phase 3. So, we were ecstatic. It came as a bit of surprise. And then what we did was...
Wait, sorry to cut you off. So you got an approval for phase 2/phase 3 at the same time, or
no,
just straight to phase 3?
Clear. So we applied for a phase 2, but they came back and said, based on your safety and efficacy history, and the fact that we had an open IND because we already ran a phase 2 study for gout, they said, you come back to us with a IND package for a phase 3, a much larger study with Bucillamine. So that was a pleasant surprise, and we worked with our CRO Pharma to prepare that, and that was submitted back at the end of June, around June 30th, to the FDA, and then it takes sort of around 30 days for them to assess the material, and they came back to us around July 30th, where they gave us the confirmation to proceed to a phase 3 study. Now, a phase 3 study is a big study. This is up to 1,000 people. And, we expect right now we're initiating a lot of the background work, which is basically, the sites and getting all the contracts in place with our CRO and some of the work that has to be done around that. But a phase 3 study is basically, a different platform, addressing, more deeper efficacy around it. We're excited, to put the pieces together and move forward into the fall timeframe. So to summarize, Revive has a lot of strong IP, and, it's not a one-trick pony. So, that's where I think that we have an edge in the marketplace, because we do have some very strong IP in the cannabis sector. We have strong IP really right now, I believe, with Bucillamine around infectious diseases, and obviously what we're doing in the psychedelic psilocybin.
When you're doing the phase 3, will it be done locally, regionally? Are you allowed to go outside of the borders?
Right. Yeah. So right now we did make an announcement last week. The phase 3 study, what we're planning on doing is with our CRO will be in the U.S. We already announced some of the sites that we're looking at. Obviously, these are some of the hotspot sites like Florida, Arizona, potentially Oregon, and California. So it's pretty well U.S. focused. We did have a meeting earlier, I guess maybe a couple months ago or 6 weeks ago with Health Canada, and our preference would be to look at doing a study, which we are going to be doing mostly in the U.S., but we could do an arm up in Canada to go back to Health Canada with that. But predominantly it's U.S. that we're focused on. That's sort of the big big driver here. And, you know, we are open to doing the study in a couple other locations, like Canada and stuff. Obviously, we have to talk further on the regulatory side, but the U.S., some of those cities is the main focus right now. And, you know, so we're going to be moving the next couple of months and just sort of getting all things ready. You have to remember also in a phase 3 study, a lot of times people have to understand these are usually double-blinded studies, so that physicians, patients really don't know what they're getting, and you need a placebo involved. So there's a lot of work in terms of preparing, you know, to take this initiative, you know, into the system. Obviously, there's a lot of initiatives going on in the U.S. right now in terms of, you know, fast tracking and you know, a lot of grants available for companies. So, you know, we're exploring a lot of stuff as well in terms of fast tracking the initiatives. And, you know, we're so far very encouraged with what we've heard and seen. We've had a number of discussions with a variety of different groups. So this is a big milestone for Revive. You know, obviously just getting accepted for a phase 3 study is unique. It's not a lot of companies that specifically microcaps that have that. So
it is a big differentiator in the space as well as on the exchange. Right.
So it's a big, you know, it's a big honor to basically look at, you know, moving that initiative forward. And so, you know, we're working quite closely with our consultants and we have, you know, our CRO, which is out of the U.S. Pharma alum is helping quite a bit in terms of, you know, putting it together. And it's really addressing, you know, mild and moderate COVID sent home. And, you know, we're basically, you know, looking at basically the whole process of, you know, monitoring. And it's basically a study of 800 people, but there's an interim analysis point at around 210 people. And that's, you know, sort of the first cutoff. And then it sort of goes to like 400, 600, 800, depending on the results. So
right.
A large study, lots of work, and, you know, Revive, you know, believes, you know, we have quite a bit of support with, as I said, Mitch, our CRO, to move that forward. So it's you know, it's basically strong and very good initiative now.
So I have 2 questions, and they're both sort of different parts of the spectrum. One is a personal question, more of your opinion as to where do you think this is going and how long do you think it's going to last? What is there a light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, I know you and Revive are doing some really, really good work and making some headway, but overall, is this going to be with us for a while?
Well, I'm not a doctor per se, but obviously I understand the science, and you know, talking and working with a lot of doctors. The issue here is there's not a vaccine yet. That may take a long time. There are a number of vaccine companies. There's a lot of different types of treatment that are available in the marketplace. But you know, I still think that, you know, potentially we're still in the early innings of this, and obviously it's probably going to end up being some combination of a treatment, you know, potentially like an antiviral with our type of a drug, or, you know, our type of a drug with, you know, different dosing initiatives. So a lot of work still has to be done on the R&D side. And one of the interesting things is there's another study going on at Sloan Kettering where they're looking at an amino acid cysteine derivative called NAC. NAC basically is a protein as well, which has worked in basically animal models and preclinical work where it helped reduce inflammation of different tissues. And basically what we have shown in some of our work and our data, that basically the premise or the hypothesis is Bucillamine is 16 times more powerful than NAC based on the fact that it's 2 teal groups, which are basically 2 delivery mechanisms, and also the way it's metabolized in the liver. And that's a lot of the hypothesis here that we believe will show that Bucillamine is an effective anti-rheumatic, anti-inflammation agent, and that the work that's been done, the data, a lot of it has been referenced in our press releases, will show that this hypothesis will substantiate and validate it. So there's a lot of different work going on, obviously, and I think yes, I do think that we're still fairly early. There could be quite a bit of time to sort of address this, and obviously we want to get into stuff as quickly as possible clinically.
Now the second question, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer this. When a company such as Revive is making strides and making gains, it gets attention, and it could probably get attention from bigger, larger, behemoth pharmaceutical companies. Have your tires been getting kicked? Are people sort of circling around Revive? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but
right. Well, as I mentioned, right now we just got accepted to proceed to the phase 3 study. That was the end of July. So right now, we're talking with our CRO. We've had some discussions with some regulatory agencies in terms of programs and further funding. The company right now has, did a financing back in March, but there's, quite a bit of warrant money coming into the company as well. Probably somewhere between, $5 to $6 million. So, we believe there's enough cash, obviously, to get things rolling in the study, and, tapping into other funding, government programs. We're talking to a number of different groups now, plus accessing the capital markets, again, something we may look at. To answer your point, yeah, there's a lot of bigger companies around that are looking for different strategic partnerships, and although we can't really address in specifics, obviously everybody working on this platform in terms of the virus is having a lot of discussions, I believe, cross pollinations with other companies, and obviously the key here is obviously to try to get to the trial as soon as possible. So a lot of resources are needed. So to answer your question, we were discussing a lot of stuff right now with government agencies right now, and where there's a lot of initiatives down in the U.S. But we believe that we'll be able to go alone into the study, and things are looking favorable right now in terms of getting there. We did, put out a lot of the protocol in our press releases and the hypothesis, so people could, look at that and get more information. But, we feel that, we have a very good platform in terms of, basically validating that hypothesis. And, we're open to looking at different partners and resources.
Now, no company does it by themselves, or no individual. Could you talk a little bit about the team behind you and behind Revive?
Right. So I'm basically the CEO. I've worked a lot in terms of, preparing the strategy, working with the company in terms of taking it to this level. We've working extensively with a CRO, and basically down in South Carolina, which is PharmaLum, has helped a lot in terms of developing the protocols and submitting that and interfacing with the FDA. We also have a number of other consultants that are helping with the project management and areas like that. We have basically a legal regulatory person that's involved with the company, as well as a CFO. But a lot of it is, is partnered and outsourced with people really from the medical CRO space in terms of, preparing the package. I mean, the documentation at a phase 3 level is, is an excessive amount of information needed. And one of the reasons why I believe obviously the FDA looked very favorable upon our submission was because we had a lot of the data, a lot of the package, a lot of the safety from the drug, which we, as I mentioned, repurposed back in 2015 for gout.
Earlier on, when you were discussing a little bit about the history of Revive, IP seemed to play and does play a big part, not only in your business but also in your success. Uh, how granular, how micro does it have to go down to? And is there a time frame on the IP? Do you own all of it, parts of it? Just for our audience, how does IP, how does it work with your company?
As far as Bucillamine, we basically have, as a repurposed drug, but we have some strong agreements with the manufacturer and partners in Asia, namely South Korea. One of them is a company called Yumi, and all the IP and data that comes out of these indications, diseases, we have rights to and strong IP-based partnership with them. Other areas where we repurpose the drug, like for gout, where we ran a phase 2 study, we basically own those. We have those patents ourselves. They've been assigned to us, and we worked on that indication. For COVID and Corona, when we announced it, we filed provisional patents for Bucillamine to treat that disease. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of strong agreements with the manufacturer drug we were purposing. The key here is that we've worked with the data. We understand the data. It's been translated. We have a history with it. So we've got a good comfort feeling and a good understanding with our partners. So that's a big help when you do these FDAs, is to be able to repurpose the drug and basically, in retrospect, repurpose the data to understand how the data could apply to a new indication. Our plan really is to, work with Bucillamine. We have a lot of experience with it. Bucillamine is a very versatile drug. So, it's worked in gout, cystinuria to treat kidney stones. It could be used for Wilson's disease, and a lot of other areas where inflammation is basically an area of concern. So it's not basically a one-stop shop just for Corona. So our focus really is to work with Bucillamine, go into these clinical studies. Phase 3 gives you a strong platform. We could repurpose the drug for other diseases as well, and build the IP further from there. So to answer, yeah, it gets pretty granular. You have to take it down, quite a bit. But the key with Revive is, and many other companies in this space, is leveraging the IP and harnessing it for different indications. So although a lot of the IP we set right now is for Bucillamine to treat infectious diseases, in those patents which we filed, it obviously talks about various strains, like coronavirus is one strain, H1N1 is another strain. But when you do the INDs with the FDA, you have to be very specific on the disease. So it's basically a Bucillamine to treat COVID-19.
Right.
However, as I mentioned, it's about inflammation, right? And that's that's what the data supports, that that Bucillamine can help reduce inflammation, not only in the lungs, but there is a lot of reports coming out, obviously, that when they've done autopsies on a lot of people that have died, that there's been a lot of inflammation around the heart, liver, other organs. So we believe Bucillamine will help reduce inflammation around a lot of these areas as well, for people that are participating in the trial, and based on a lot of the data from the past.
This might be just a silly question, but does it, with some of the things that you're seeing, does it depend on age? Like, is it having more efficacy or less if you're over 65 or under 30?
I mean,
it doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, that's a good question. Initially, when we did some of our submission to the FDA, they were interested in us doing even a broader study. So initially we were 800 people, and then they wanted us to open it up to even younger people, 18 to 80. So, it's basically 1,000 people in terms of sample size. So that's the key, is to see the kind of results you get from, people in the sample group. So, having obviously a bigger sample group gives you maybe a more wider appeal in terms of the data. There's a lot of statistical models that are used basically when they do these assessments, in terms of seeing, age and, race and different skews that show that, one group is more prevalent than the other. So this study, the phase 3, is really about a larger sample size. This is quite a bit. This is a large sample size of 1,000 people. It's not a thing that can happen overnight, but, we just filed on clinicaltrials.org some of the protocol, and, we expect to be starting the fall. We expect, some data along the way. And, there's some endpoints there that, hopefully we can address. First one is being around 210 people, which, we'll look at some of the endpoints there, and then you go from there upwards, right? So.
Well, Michael Frank, I just want to say, on behalf of just the citizen, the everyday citizen, we applaud what you're doing. We applaud what Revive is doing, and we wish you nothing but success and, anything that can be done to slow this thing down or solve it is greatly appreciated. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, I just thank you for that. Obviously, we're not the only company, so I think, it's definitely an effort that everybody's working on. So, definitely appreciate, being a public company, shareholders supporting our work and vision, I'm sure as well as many other companies. And obviously, it's a learning process for a lot of people. And, we're obviously, the best minds are being put forth. I mean, I'm learning every day and, working and learning. So, it's a great effort across a lot of different industries and from a lot of different people.
Well, we appreciate it. If you're listening and you like to find out more, we've done earlier podcasts with Revive Therapeutics as well. You can subscribe if you like it. Click below, www.thecse.com. You can check out our blog as well as on YouTube, CSE_TV. We're on all the major social media channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I've been your host, Barrington Miller from the Canadian Securities Exchange. And today I was speaking with Michael Frank from Revive Therapeutics. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so much.